You will fall in love with me. You will take me away from this place.
Full disclosure, news and commentary number 131, 131, 131, 131, 131. How you doing? New people on Patreon, welcome, welcome. That's wonderful to see. Bunch of stuff going on. This may be the last full disclosure with my regular webcam through my laptop. Because there's somebody who's interested in giving me money so I can upgrade my equipment, which is very nice of them. We'll see if it comes through. You know how it is. Welcome to Full Disclosure. So I'm just going to go off the rip. People seem to really like me doing that last time, so that's what I'm going to do. I am going to, of course, point out the stuff because that's important. So APW, 78 people. Good for them. Renegade, right? Only 50. But you know, the week before they did that gangbuster number. So I guess they've definitely been brought back to earth. The cool thing about Renegade that I see is Logan Chase being their general manager. I think that's a really cool thing. Of course, we had my report for the Deathmatch Circus. I thought it was a very successful weekend. A great look for ICW there in Michigan. Of course, the big show of the week is a Southern Fried, which 225, which I think you have to consider a success when you're basically starting over. So that's pretty great. And they seem to go in a really good direction. And a number of people have sent me the David Ali versus Michael Judas match. So I will definitely look at that in the next day or two. Pretty great. Larry put out that top 10 wrestlers in Georgia. Again, if you're not checking out gwhnewsandnotes.blogspot.com, you need to do that stuff because you got all these show reports. You got Larry throwing stuff up. It's becoming much more about the news that's hip happening in the now. And then we kind of sum up all the posters and stuff like that for shows coming up in Rob Rod's kind of tidy and neat report. So that works much better, in my opinion. When you look at this top 10 from Larry, let me just start going off about stuff. Larry, by his own admission, he did this before the Southern Fried show. So he had Judas at 1, Mac at 2, David Ali at 3. Now, obviously, that's going to flip-flopping. When David Ali is holding titles, he holds a title in IWE, and then, you know, he's holding the main titles in Southern Fried and Southern Honor. Yeah, I mean, that guy's got to be number 1, right? Obviously, there was a move to, like, let's see if we can get David Ali up here and make sure he wins Wrestler of the Year. And I do think that that's a strong move in that direction. There's just no way about it, right? It's kind of like when Gunnar Miller had the PCW title and had the Anarchy title and held them and won the Scenic City. He was pretty much a lock. So we'll see if David Ali is a lock at this point. But when you're looking at Larry's top 10, you see Judas at 1, Mac at 2, which I think is a great choice. David Ali at 3, Chip Day at 4, Logan Creed at 5, Alex Kane at 6, Austin Towers at 7, Joe Black at 8, Sal Renaro at 9, and Ashton Starr at 10. Something I thought was really cool was one of the people who were honorable mentions, Zach Mosley, posted a thing where he said, I think it's really cool that I'm in the honorable mention. I'm going to keep working until I get in the top 10. And a lot of people that knew him, and I understand this instinct, were like, what? That list is bogus and it's political. And one, they said, it's political and really subjective. And it's like, no shit. Of course lists like this are subjective. It's a fucking top 10 list about people fake fighting in their underwear. How the fuck is that not going to be subjective? God, I hate fucking wrestling fans. By the way, people have said to me all along as I've been saying I hate fucking wrestling fans. Well, Steve, Don't you think that that's counterintuitive? If you want to hate wrestling fans, what you need to do is you need to look into any discussion about pro wrestling, particularly about booking ideas or how somebody should be utilized on television. And you too will learn to hate the wrestling fan, unless you are one. In fact, that's a good litmus test if you are more wrestling fan or wrestling person. Because if your ideas completely fucking suck, you're more wrestling fan than wrestling person. To this, you may say, well, Steve, most wrestlers I know have really shitty ideas. Yeah, because they're more wrestling fan than wrestling person. Fucking ouch. Apply that standard. If somebody you know generally has really shitty ideas, then they're more wrestling fan than wrestling person. And that's how you know. I thought Larry's secondary list of single promotion stars was really good as well. Eric Royal at number 1, Adam Priest, number 2, and Kevin Koo at number 5, who are basically action wrestling people. Darius Lockhart, who does his thing at Viral, and then Gunnar Miller at Southern Honor. I thought that was a cool way to sort of do that list. And the honorable mentions, again, if you take the top 10 and you add the honorable mentions, that would be a killer fucking roster, right? Jeter, Suge D, Sean Legacy, Shane Marks, Marv, Owen Knight, Proc Johnson, Zach Mosley, Matt Sells, Will Caution, Kevin Ryan, and Trevor Aon. Super cool. And again, Larry putting up that good stuff. I'm putting up those good reports. Rob Rod's chiming in with his stuff. So it's a good time. I really enjoyed looking at that Hold My Fork documentary about Southern Honor Wrestling. I'm curious what's going to come of that, if anything. And of course, Southern Honor has their big show of the year, Still Here 3, happening on Friday. So we'll see how that does. The Wrestle America promoter being hospitalized. That's Dennis Gale, by the way. Fucking triple bypass surgery. Holy moly. Hopefully he does well. I saw where Charlie Smith has got the COVID. Hope he does well as well. Just all this kind of good stuff happening. I loved Jeff Richards' Superstars of Wrestling report from Taylor, South Carolina. A little bit of inside baseball stuff. Apparently, Dave Wills was very, very upset with me because I basically thought what he did on Full Disclosure was dippity-doo dog shit. And I didn't say it outright, but I basically implied strongly that I didn't think it was very good. And Dave Wills was incredibly upset about that. Well, it just goes to show, is Dave Wills more wrestling fan or wrestling person? And I would say based on that promo and all that dippity-doo dog shit, he's more wrestling fan than wrestling person. And I don't know why that would insult him, since he's one of the most famous wrestling fans going nowadays. But he is definitely more wrestling fan than wrestling person. He sucked as a fucking manager, and his promo was downright embarrassing. In fact, I'd see, why do people feel the need to call me out? Because then I'm just going to fucking hit you with the truth. In fact, what he did on Tipping Point is one of the 5 worst fucking appearances that has ever happened on that podcast, whether I was hosting it or not. I would say that's definitely in the top 5. Other horrible performances and renditions include Cameron Cade, the first time he came on before I was hosting the show, but where he completely froze up and gave one-word answers. So Cameron Cade fucking sucked. And Dave Wills fucking sucked. And see Nick, when he was on doing his State of Wrestling speech, he was the worst of the fucking worst. So I would put him there. That time Nemesis and Danny Only got into a shouting match was fucking horrible. This was years ago, where they actually flattened out the fucking speakers because they were yelling so loud, as Dave Wills did. That's a pretty good indication that you're fucking sucking if you're yelling that hard. And then, who else gave it? Oh, and Francisco Chiazzo fucking doing his entire interview while on the Stairmaster at the gym. So those are your 5 worst performances in no particular order. Not a big deal. Other people have had bad performances and then come back and had great fucking performances. David Ali amongst them. by the way. So it's not that it's a death sentence. The only death sentence is fucking denying when you suck, in my mind. Cool. What else is going on? It's a big weekend in wrestling. You got Action doing their shit, but then we got to talk about Southern Honor. We got to talk about it because it's cool. So they've got the documentary out, and they've got this show. All right, let's be real. I'm part of full disclosure and how I'm going to modify it is I'm going to talk to you the same way that I talk to the people that are in the know, that are hip, that's happening, that's cool in wrestling. All right, can you handle that? And something that we do is we assess what's a success and what's not a success. And so for Southern Fried, for their New Beginning show or whatever they called it, I thought that was a terrible idea to basically just call a show, hey guys, we're starting over. But with their fan base, clearly that doesn't matter. Their fan base is not insulted by the notion of like, hey guys, we're hitting the reset button. Okay, great. I would have thought if they got less than 200, that would have been a disaster. But they got 225, so that's good. What's a disaster for Still Here 3? And people are going to say, I don't like that you're doing that, because why does crowd size? If I have to explain at this point why crowd size fucking matters, why the scoreboard matters in a game, I don't know what to fucking tell you. It matters. So they're not going to get 1,000. Get that out of your fucking head. Right? And so I'm not even going to hold them to that. That's ridiculous. I would say if you're doing a double ring war game-ish kind of thing that you once thought would draw 1,000, and you're also paying off any number of other angles, Rika Tahaka against Danny Jordan, for example, and you're having this documentary as sort of a lead-in to garner all this momentum, which clearly that was part of the intent, right, to have all this momentum leading up to this moment. I think if you don't do about what you did with Rumblejack, that could be considered a failure. Don't you? For your big show of the year, if you can't do your last biggest crowd, last biggest audience, I would consider that a failure. Does that mean that the show will have no merit? Of course not. If they draw 400 instead of 500, I would say 500 is a good litmus test. If they can get 500 people in the door, they can feel good about that. If they get less than that, then something is wrong. Now, that doesn't mean that there couldn't be competition. Maybe there will be, right? Speaking of failures, and by the way, do I think Southern Honor, let's do the over-under of 500. Answer to yourself right now. Are they going to get it? I'm going to say no, but they'll get close. I think they'll get in the 475 range. And they'll buck really hard. And they'll have people waiting early. And they'll have all of that good stuff that only Southern Honor gets, right? Like that kind of rabid fan love. And I'm seeing the kind of promoting in earnest happening right now in a way that I didn't see it before. So their tactic obviously was like, we're going to hit it hard the week of the show. We'll see if that works. We'll see if that doesn't work. Coming Tuesday, Escape the Undertaker. Oh my God. On Netflix. We'll see how that goes. All right. IWN last Friday drew 25 people. Let me say that again. IWN last Friday supposedly drew 25 people in Dothan, Alabama. Now, they didn't have their thousands of dollars worth of production. Good fucking thing. But I caught a lot of shit for ripping on IWN. Can I rip on them now? Is that okay with everybody? Once you draw 25 on your fucking show with a giant payroll, can I now rip on them? Is that okay? Can I now say officially that they do a shitty job promoting? Because they're doing a shitty job promoting. Can I say that? Can we be in agreement on that fucking shit, please? What did they do on Saturday? I have no idea. But I'll tell you, when your first show with all the hoopla gets 2, then your next show gets 150, and then your third show gets 25, you're in fucking trouble. And you're doing something really, 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 really wrong, especially when you're drawing these numbers at places that you're announcing that you're going to be back the next month. And the shows feel flat. When I hear about them, they don't sound good to me. And people were upset about what I said about Championship Wrestling from Atlanta. Okay, now people have gotten a chance to see it. And my declaration that the only people who are going to watch that fucking thing are the wrestlers that were on it, is that not true? How many hits does it have on YouTube? Whatever. Is there anybody who wants to tell me that that show is great? I'm not saying the talent on it isn't good and blah, 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 blah. I'm just saying there is nothing about that show that inspires. There's nothing about that show that is cool. And that's the word I want to fucking talk about, is cool matters. When you're cool, former detractors start acquiescing that you're good. Jim Cornette, AEW. When you're cool, you sell a lot of tickets before you announce the card. When you're cool, celebrities show up at your shit because they legitimately want to be there, not because they're getting paid. When you're cool, the other wrestlers come to see your show. When you're cool, you don't have to say you're the best, you just are. When you're cool, you can make wild declarations and they get backed up. When you're cool, you just know it. When you're cool, I talk about you to my wrestling friends. Cool doesn't mean that I necessarily agree with you. Cool doesn't necessarily mean any of that. But there's cool and there's not cool. And there's a difference between cool and relevant. And that goes for wrestlers as well. Who's cool? Who's undeniably cool? What happens when you stop being cool? And that can happen for a number of reasons. Either your act gets stale, or people don't really want you in the prominent position. Let's just fucking shoot straight. People are happy to have Jacob Ashworth on their card because it will help their show, but no one really wants him to be their champion. True or not true? True. They're happy to have him back, and we can argue about whether people like want to have him back because they feel like he's rehabbed his image enough. That's a different debate. I'm talking about shows are happy to have him there, because he will help with the gate. That's just real, right? But the two prominent promotions that booked him seemingly couldn't get him out of a main event position fast enough. Southern Fried, it's Anarchy. This is not judging. I'm just telling you what the fuck is happening, folks. And then you're allowed to argue with me. But come on. They didn't want Jacob Ashworth as their top guy. Because at the end of the day, it's problematic. And it could be argued that they're paying for it at the box office, at least in the case of Anarchy. Now, Southern Fried has moved him to a prominent feud. I think him feuding I think that's a great feud. I think that's a smart thing to do. And it gets away from their problem of they put the title on the right guy, David Ali. Yeah. But they didn't want to put it on Jacob Ashworth. Or they would have. Or they could have. And Anarchy, Jacob Ashworth won in a hot shot that they had to do because that show was falling apart. But then they got the title off of him as fast as they could to a face. Coincidentally, Southern Fried did the same thing. So it's not the idea of not wanting a face champion, of wanting someone to chase. It was the idea of, we want a face champion, we just don't want it to be Jacob Ashworth. Interesting, right? It's interesting the choices that people make. Another thing about the current state of things is when you're talking about cool and not cool, right? It's amazing the difference that Pro South not running shows for a while, and then in conjunction with Anarchy not running shows, and then Peach State not really running shows, what that did to Tyler Culprit. You want to talk about a guy who got the rug pulled out from fucking under him? It's Tyler Culprit, right? At one point it got no cooler. And now it is cool in the wrong way. As in, he's cooled off. And Southern Honor brought him in, but they didn't really do anything with him. Southern Honor booking right now, to me, is kind of haphazard. They've got things going on, but nothing feels complete. They don't have who's going to win that title. I don't know, and that's a problem. I don't see who could win it. It is, I mean, in one sense, it's good because it's like any of those guys who are in that match could win it, and I could see it, and I guess I would be like, okay. But there's nobody who I feel like has to win it, right? If I say who really should win it, win the title in AEW, people might say Bryan Danielson, or they might say Adam Page. But they won't say a host of other people because it will feel like this person should win it because of this person should win it because of that. Everybody else is in a different state of flux, right? That's good. That's strong wrestling booking. If it feels like, I mean, in Southern Fried, who should win this thing from Judas? Is it Jacob Ashworth or David Ali? Everybody else didn't feel right. And that worked to their advantage. In Anarchy at one point, who should beat Shane Marks? Is it Jacob Ashworth? And Will Caution's very over. So they went with one of those choices, right? They went with the cooler choice. Yeah. I mean, can we agree on that? Okay, argue with me if you want, but I'm right. Cool should manifest itself naturally. Not as cool as having your vacuum cleaner show up. But that means I vacuum my floor. That's a good thing. Here's what I want. Because we are heading headlong into award season, right? This month of October, November, December. Who's going to take the uncrowned title that matters the most, which is cool? The last 2 years, it's been Southern Honor. They've been the coolest. But who's the coolest now? Is it still Southern Honor? Is it a number of different things? Because Wrestler of the Year, one of the strongest arguments for David Ali is just a cool factor. That factors in and that matters. And you can bitch, moan, oh, it's based on work rate and what titles you hold. Oh, fuck you. There's just cool and there's just not. It's why Joe Black won. Because on top of everything else that you want to say for accolades for Joe Black, there just came down to, there was just I want to fucking see Joe Black. Cool matters. Cool factors. Especially for a fantasy-based, entertainment-based business of pro wrestling. Cool matters. It's why whenever we've seen these like spats between people, it's why ultimately Gary Lamb looked weak against Exotic Youth. No matter how sycophants wanted to argue for Gary, you can't argue for Gary because Exotic Youth are just cooler. They got a hot girl with them. They're fucking going everywhere. They have their routines. They're willing to do good business. They're young. They're hot. They're at a billion different promotions. Cool is cool is cool. Yeah. I'll give this to Face to Face. The loss of Simon Sermon is a huge blow to their wrestling school. However, I will say in the nonce, they did exactly what they should have done. Not that I'm rooting for that Richard dickhead who runs Face to Face, because I still think it's shit and I think he's a fucking idiot and all that stuff. But Getting Fred Yehi to run your school, pretty cool. And the proof is in the pudding. The boys that are already working wrestlers go there to train. Why? Because Fred Yehi, for lack of a better word, yes, we can make all these arguments. He's a great wrestler and la 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 la. But it comes down to there's something cool about being trained by Fred Yehi. It's a factor that fucking matters. The thing that I hate for Pro South about the point at which they stopped doing shows, and hopefully they will start again very soon, but the point at which they stopped doing shows was when they took the biggest chance and they were at the height of cool. My God, they did, you know, they did a whole gunshot thing and a whole, sparked all this debate and then nothing. The only thing worse than not being cool is being cool and not getting to reap the benefits of it. It's being Fonzie, but then never getting your dick played with. And right now, Pro South, ain't nobody touching their dick. So I hope they can get their shows going soon. Momentum is real. Cool is real. AWE, they had an amazing show, but the reason I was so adamant about you got to make sure you do this next show and you got to be consistent and you got to blah, 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 is because being Fonzie without anybody touching your dick is fucking pointless. And they got to keep doing shows, and I hope they will. So the question is, wrestlers, wrestling people, wrestling shows. And these endless debates as people like partisan up that they're like WWE loyalists or AEW loyalists or Ring of Honor loyalists or whatever the fucking dumb shit people do nowadays, instead of just being able to look at everything and enjoy what you want to enjoy. The fact that people like need to fucking, it's so dumb. But one thing that's not deniable, people can feel however they want to feel about AEW. And I've read a number of people I knew in the wrestling business who fucking had all these dumb opinions about AEW. Well, guess what? Here's I'm going to make a statement that's subjective, but it's going to feel objective as fuck. AEW is cool and WWE is not. That doesn't mean everything about WWE is shitty, but when it comes to cool, come on. Come on. Cool is the reaction that CM Punk gets. Cool is putting on matches that are fucking mind-blowingly great. Cool is being able to fucking sell tickets when you haven't announced a match yet. Cool is people were impressed when WCW ran a show on Monday night and outdrew Raw. Are we going to pretend that it's not as big a deal or a bigger deal that AEW can go into New York fucking city and outdraw the WWE? That they can literally draw in the same town, Cincinnati, and fucking outdraw WWE? Or, oh no, but it's different buildings. What about the same building and selling 3 times as many fucking tickets? And now the goalposts move more. Oh, well, yeah, but the WWE tickets are more expensive. Yeah, they sure as fuck are. Have you seen how much the tickets are for goddamn Royal Rumble? Because Royal Rumble is the one show that they know that they can sell. It's like SummerSlam. The cheapest ticket right now for Royal Rumble, $170. At what point are your fans' assholes going to get expanded too much? I guess we're going to find out soon. But here's the undeniable fact. AEW is cool and WWE is not. And you want proof? Look no further than NXT. Is there a less cool logo? Is there a less cool looking audience that you can now see in glorious Technicolor? Eesh. Now you might say, oh, it's cool that they have a bunch of new people. Is it? As fans continue to run away from that show, we shall see how things play out. One thing that's not deniable, that Tony Khan and taking ideas from wrestlers is infinitely cooler than Bruce Pritchard, John Laurinaitis, and Kevin Dunn. because those are the guys that are running shit right now. And I literally could not think of 3 names prominently in the wrestling business that run things that could be less cool. You would be more cool having the fucking stodgy, I hate everything guys run WWE than those 3 jackholes. Because at least there would be a viewpoint. At least there would be a vision besides power acquisition and making sure the trains run on time and making sure Vince McMahon is happy. What's less cool than appealing to a 70-something-year-old man? What's less cool than having a fan base that averages 50 years old or older? And which show has the oldest average fan base? NXT, the show that should have the youngest, but it doesn't. You know why? Because young people don't watch that show. Only old people who habitually watch wrestling who watch their other shows. And what is less cool than that? You can't claim cool when young people are like, fuck this shit. So wrestling promotions, look at your audience. Doesn't mean you can't have old wrestling fans. Fucking, they're great. It's great if you have a hat pin Mary. What's a hat pin Mary, Steve? That's code for old time wrestling fans, the old ladies that believe and get super into the shit. That's great. You should have a hat pin Mary. But if you have majority hat pin Marys, your promotion is not cool. Look out at your audience. Hopefully you have some perky boobs out there. Hopefully you have some skin tones that register a little darker out there. Hopefully you have guys that would make tremendous hairdressers out there. Hopefully you have a nice diverse audience. Doesn't mean that that's all you should have. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't have your white guys. Of course you need your neck beards. It's pro wrestling. But what I'm saying is, if your audience isn't cool, then you sure as fuck aren't. If your fan base as a wrestler aren't cool, then you sure as fuck aren't. Did that hurt you? Did that hit you? I said last week that the standard is greatness. Well, I'm going to hit you with another absolute statement that can't possibly be true, except it kind of is. And that statement is this: the standard is greatness, and the other thing is the aspiration is cool. So go be cool. This has been Full Disclosure.